Amy Brooks stood in line with the other new cadets, feeling like a child among giants. At 5 feet and 2 inches tall, she barely reached the chest of most aliens around her. The Korthak warriors towered over everyone at nearly 8 feet, their thick gray skin looking like natural armor. The Selvari hunters moved with fluid grace, their long limbs and bright yellow eyes scanning everything around them. Even the smallest alien cadets were at least 6 feet tall. The orientation hall buzzed with different languages and sounds. Some aliens made clicking noises when they talked. Others spoke in deep, rumbling voices that made the floor vibrate. Amy tried to stand straighter, but she still looked tiny compared to everyone else. Next group, step forward for combat class evaluation, announced a voice that sounded like grinding rocks. Amy moved forward with her group. The other cadets looked down at her with curiosity. A few Selvari cadets whispered each other in their musical language. She caught the word human and knew they were talking about her. The evaluation room was massive, with high ceilings and walls covered in weapons from different worlds. In the center stood Commander Vex, the head combat instructor. He was a reptilian, standing 8 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes that seemed to glow. Scars covered his arms and neck, proof of many battles. His reputation was known throughout the galaxy as one of the best fighters alive. Commander Vex looked at each cadet as they entered. His eyes stopped on Amy for a long moment. His mouth curved into what might have been a smile, but it looked more like a threat. State your name and combat experience. He commanded the first cadet, a massive Korthak warrior. Cadet Zrak. 5 years training in Korthak battle schools. Expert with blade and hammer weapons. The warrior replied in a deep voice. Commander Vex nodded and moved to the next cadet. One by one, the aliens listed impressive training records. Most had been preparing for military service since childhood. Their species were natural warriors, bred for combat over thousands of years. Finally, Commander Vex reached Amy. He looked down at her like she was an interesting insect. And you, small one, state your name and combat experience. Amy Brooks. I grew up on Terra Colony 7. I learned to fight from my 3 older brothers and my father. We had to defend our farm from raiders several times. The room went quiet. Some cadets made sounds that might have been laughter. Commander Vex's yellow eyes narrowed. Terra Colony 7, a farming world. He said it like it was something dirty. And you think farm fighting qualifies you for military combat training? I think fighting for your life qualifies anyone for combat training, sir, Amy replied calmly. More sounds of amusement came from the other cadets. Commander Vex stepped closer to Amy, even bent over. His head was 3 feet above hers. Little human, look around you. See those Korthak warriors? Their bones are dense as steel. Their skin can stop small weapons fire. Those Selvari hunters can move faster than your eyes can follow. They have natural claws that can cut through metal. Amy looked around the room, then back at Commander Vex. Yes, sir, I can see that. Then you understand why humans belong in support roles. Communications, logistics, technical support, not combat. He straightened up and addressed the whole group. Combat requires size, strength, speed, and natural weapons. Humans have none of these advantages. With respect, sir, humans have other advantages, Amy said quietly. The room went completely silent. Even the alien cadets who had been whispering stopped talking. Nobody questioned Commander Vex in his own classroom. Other advantages? His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Please enlighten us. Amy felt every eye in the room on her. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice stayed steady. We adapt. We think differently. We don't give up. Commander Vex stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to his computer pad and made some notes. Cadet Brooks, you are assigned to support logistics training. Report to Instructor Keel in Wing C tomorrow at 0800 hours. He looked back at the other cadets. The rest of you will begin advanced combat training with me. Sir, I respectfully request consideration for combat training, Amy said. Several cadets made shock sounds. Nobody had ever challenged a training assignment from Commander Vex. Request denied. Your physical parameters are insufficient for combat class. You would be a danger to yourself and others. He turned away from her. Dismissed. Combat cadets report here tomorrow at 0600 hours. As the cadets filed out of the room, Amy stayed behind. Commander Vex was organizing training equipment and pretending not to notice her. Sir, I said, dismissed. Cadet Brooks, I know you don't think humans belong in combat roles, but I'd like a chance to prove you wrong. Commander Vex set down the training weapon he was holding and turned to face her. Little human, I have been training warriors for 20 years. I have fought in 3 wars and survived battles that killed thousands. I know what makes a good fighter, and size matters. Strength matters. Speed matters. Then test me, Amy said simply. I already have. You failed before you even started. Amy took a step closer. You looked at me and decided I couldn't fight. You didn't test anything. For a moment, something flickered in Commander Vex's yellow eyes. It might have been interest, or it might have been anger. Very well. You want to test? Tomorrow, after combat class, you may observe training. Watch what real warriors can do. Perhaps then you will understand why humans belong in safe positions away from actual fighting. Thank you, sir. Do not thank me yet, little human. What you see tomorrow will end any foolish ideas about combat training. Amy nodded and headed for the door. As she reached it, Commander Vex called out behind her. Cadet Brooks. Yes, sir. Your brothers and father who taught you to fight. Are they military? No, sir. My father was a farmer. My brothers are farmers. But Terra Colony 7 didn't have military protection. We had to protect ourselves. Commander Vex said nothing more, but Amy caught him watching her as she left the room. Walking through the corridors of the academy, Amy passed groups of alien cadets discussing their combat training assignments. They looked at her with mixtures of pity and amusement. The small human who thought she could be a warrior. Amy had heard it all before. Back on Terra Colony 7, everyone said she was too small to help defend the farm, too weak to fight raiders, too young to handle weapons. They said it right up until the day she took down 3 armed raiders with nothing but a farming tool and pure determination. Tomorrow she would watch combat training, and somehow she would find a way to prove that being human was advantage enough. Amy arrived at the combat training hall 15 minutes early. She found a spot on the observation deck where she could see everything but stay out of the way. The training area below was enormous, with different sections for various types of combat practice. Weapon racks lined the walls, holding everything from simple blades to advanced energy weapons. The combat cadets began filing in at exactly 0600 hours. They moved with confidence, talking and laughing as they prepared for training. Amy watched them stretch and warm up. Even their warm-up exercises looked more intense than anything she had done in logistics training that morning. Commander Vex entered the hall, and the room went quiet immediately. He wore full combat gear today, and the scars on his arms seemed to stand out more under the training lights. Today we practice close combat techniques, he announced. Partner up, Korthak with Selvari. Work on speed versus strength combinations. Amy leaned forward as the training began. The alien cadets moved like dancers, but deadly ones. The Korthak warriors used their massive strength to power through defenses, while the Selvari hunters flowed around attacks with incredible speed. Even in practice, their movements were beautiful and terrifying. She studied every technique, every movement pattern, the way Selvari cadets used their flexibility to escape holds, how Korthak warriors positioned their bodies to maximize their strength advantage, the timing of attacks and counterattacks. Impressive, is it not? Amy turned to find another cadet standing beside her. This one was different from the others. Smaller, though still taller than Amy, with blue-gray skin and large dark eyes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you come up, Amy said. I am Cadet Nira, Zolani species. We are not fighters like the others, so I also observe sometimes. Nira sat down beside Amy. You are the human who requested combat training. Word travels fast around here. Commander Vex told the other instructors. Most think it is amusing. A few think it is insulting. Nero watched the training below. What do you think of what you see? Amy studied the combat practice. They're all very skilled, but they're predictable. Predictable? Each species fights the same way. Korthak use strength. Selvar use speed. It's like they're following a playbook that never changes. Nira's large eyes turn to Amy with interest. You see patterns in their fighting? My brothers used to gang up on me when we sparred. 3 against 1. I had to learn to think differently because I couldn't fight them the same way they fought each other. Below them, Commander Vex called for a demonstration. 2 of the best cadets, 1 Korthak and 1 Selvari, squared off in the center of the training area. The other cadets formed a circle to watch. The fight was over in seconds. The Selvari cadet used superior speed to dart around the Korthak's powerful swings, landing quick strikes until the larger warrior couldn't continue. Speed defeats strength when properly applied, Commander Vex explained to the watching cadets. But strength can defeat speed if you can land one solid hit. This is why you must understand your advantages and your opponent's weaknesses. A voice called out from the combat floor. What about humans, Commander? What advantages do they have? Amy recognized the voice. It was Zrak, the massive Korthak warrior from yesterday's evaluation. He was looking up at the observation deck. Right at her. Commander Vex followed his gaze. Humans have no natural combat advantages. They are slow compared to Selvari, weak compared to Korthak, and lack the natural weapons of either species. Then why is one watching our training? Zrak asked loudly. Perhaps she thinks she can learn to fight like us? Other cadets turned to look at Amy. Some made amused sounds. A few looked genuinely curious about what the tiny human thought she was doing. Cadet Zrak raises an interesting point, Commander Vex said. His voice carried clearly to the observation deck. Perhaps our human observer would like a practical demonstration of why her species belongs in support roles. Amy felt her stomach tighten, but she stood up. If you're offering a demonstration, sir, I accept. The training hall went completely silent. Even Nira beside her made a small gasping sound. Commander Vex's yellow eyes seemed to glow brighter. I was not offering, Cadet Brooks. I was suggesting that Cadet Zrak might provide you with an educational experience. Zrak stepped forward, grinning. I would be honored to help the small human understand the realities of combat. Amy looked down at the 8-foot Korthak warrior, then at Commander Vex. Every instinct told her this was a bad idea. The logical thing to do was apologize and leave quietly. But Amy had never been good at doing the logical thing. I accept Cadet Zrak's offer, she called down to the training floor. The sound that went up from the combat cadets was like nothing Amy had ever heard. Excitement, disbelief, and anticipation all mixed together. Even the other instructors who had gathered to watch training looked surprised. This is not a good idea, Nira whispered beside her. Probably not, Amy agreed, already heading for the stairs to the training floor. Commander Vex watched her descend the stairs. Cadet Brooks, I want to be clear about something. This is not official training. This is a demonstration. Cadet Zrak will not be held responsible for any injuries you sustain. I understand, sir. Do you? Cadet Zrak weighs 3 times what you do. His bones are density enhanced. His skin is naturally armored. One serious hit could put you in medical for weeks. Amy stepped onto the training floor. Up close, Zrak looked even more massive. His arms were thicker than her legs. His hands could probably wrap around her entire head. I understand the risk, sir. Then you may proceed. Standard sparring rules. No weapons, no lethal force. Fight continues until one participant cannot continue or yields. The other cadets formed a circle around Amy and Zrak. She could hear them making bets on how long she would last. Most estimates were under 30 seconds. Zrak stretched his massive arms and cracked his knuckles. The sound was like breaking wood. I will try to make this quick, little human, and educational. Amy moved to the center of the sparring circle. She felt tiny standing across from Zrak, but she had felt tiny before. Her oldest brother, Jake, was 6'4" and built like a tree. The raiders who attacked their farm had been bigger and better armed than her family. Size wasn't everything. Sometimes it was actually a disadvantage. Begin, Commander Vex called out. Zrak charged immediately, exactly like Amy expected. Korthak warriors always use their strength advantage right away. His massive fists swung toward her like sledgehammers. Amy wasn't there when they arrived. She had ducked low into the side, staying close to Zrak's body where his long arms couldn't reach her effectively. As he stumbled past her, off balance from his misattack, Amy swept his leg. The massive warrior went down hard, shaking the floor when he hit. The training hall went completely silent. Zrak rolled his feet quickly, his face showing surprise and anger. "Lucky," he growled. "Maybe," Amy said calmly, already moving to stay out of his reach. This time Zrak approached more carefully. He kept his guard up and threw shorter, more controlled punches. But Amy could see the pattern. Korthak fighting style emphasized power over speed. Every attack was designed to end the fight with one hit. Amy let him chase her around the circle, dodging and weaving. She was faster than he was, and much more agile. After 2 minutes of missing every attack, Zrak was breathing hard and growing frustrated. "Stand still and fight," he demanded. "Why would I do that?" Amy replied, slipping under another powerful swing. The watching cadets were getting excited now. This wasn't going the way anyone expected. A few were even cheering for Amy. Commander Vex watched with intense interest, his yellow eyes tracking every movement. Zrak made his mistake when he got angry. He threw a massive overhand punch with all his strength behind it. Amy stepped inside the swing and drove her elbow up into his solar plexus, right where his natural armor was thinnest. The big warrior doubled over, gasping for air. Amy grabbed his head and brought her knee up to meet it. Zrak collapsed to the floor and didn't get up. The training hall exploded in noise. Cadets were shouting in different languages, some in amazement, others in disbelief. Amy stood over the fallen Korthak warrior, not even breathing hard. Commander Vex stepped into the circle. "Cadet Zrak, report your status." I yield." Zrak wheezed on the floor. Commander Vex looked at Amy for a long moment. "Interesting technique. Cadet Brooks, where did you learn to fight like that?" 3 older brothers and a lot of raiders, sir. When you're always the smallest person in the fight, you learn to use what advantages you have." "And what advantages are those?" Amy looked around at all the alien cadets staring at her. "Speed, timing, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to win." Commander Vex nodded slowly. "Report to my office after training, Cadet Brooks. We need to discuss your class assignment." Amy sat in the medical bay, watching Zrak get treated for his injuries. The Korthak warrior had a mild concussion and several bruised ribs, but he would recover completely. The medical officer, a tall Selvari with gentle hands, assured everyone that the damage was not serious. "I have never seen a Korthak warrior defeated by someone so small," the medical officer said, scanning Zrak with a healing device. "Most impressive." Zrak looked embarrassed as other cadets visited to check on him. A few Korthak cadets seemed angry that their species had been beaten by a human, but Zrak himself just looked thoughtful. "You fought well, human," he said when Amy approached his bed. "I underestimated you." "Thank you. I'm sorry about the injuries." "Do not be sorry. You won fairly. I was overconfident and stupid." Zrak tried to sit up, wincing slightly. "My fighting instructors always taught me to use my strength advantage immediately and fights quickly with overwhelming force." "That works against most opponents," Amy said, "but not against you. You made my strength into a weakness." "How?" Amy thought about how to explain it. "When someone is much bigger and stronger than you, they expect you to try to match their strength. When you don't, when you do something unexpected, they're not prepared for it. You used my own attack against me. Your balance was wrong when you charged. You committed too much to the attack. If you missed, you couldn't recover quickly." Zrak nodded slowly. "This is not how Korthak warriors are taught to think about combat. Different species, different approaches." Amy said, "Your way works great against other Korthak, or most Selvari. It just doesn't work against someone who fights completely differently. Will you teach me?" Zrak asked suddenly. Amy blinked in surprise. "Teach you what?" "To fight like humans fight. To think about combat the way you do." Before Amy could answer, Commander Vex's voice echoed through the medical bay. "Cadet Brooks, report to my office immediately." Amy left Zrak in the medical bay and made her way through the academy corridors. Other cadets she passed looked at her with new interest. Word of her victory had spread quickly, and she could hear aliens discussing it in their various languages. Commander Vex's office was smaller than Amy expected, with walls covered in weapons from different worlds and photographs of military units he had served with. The instructor sat behind a metal desk, studying something on his computer screen. "Sit," he commanded without looking up. Amy took the chair across from his desk. It was designed for much larger beings, making her feel even smaller than usual. "I have been reviewing recordings of your match with Cadet Zrak," Commander Vex said, finally looking at her. "Interesting techniques. Unusual approach to combat." "Thank you, sir. I did not say it was good. Cadet Brooks. I said it was unusual." He turned his computer screen toward her. "Watch this." The screen showed the sparring match from multiple angles. Amy watched herself duck under Zrak's first attack and sweep his leg. In slow motion, she could see exactly how she had used the Korthak's momentum against him. "Notice anything?" Commander Vex asked. Amy studied the footage. Zrak telegraphed his attack. His body language showed exactly what he was going to do before he did it. "Exactly. You read his intentions and positioned yourself accordingly. This suggests either extensive combat experience or natural tactical instincts." Commander Vex paused the video. "Terra Colony 7. Tell me about the Raider attacks." Amy shifted uncomfortably in the oversized chair. "They started when I was 12. Pirates mostly, sometimes slavers. They would hit isolated farms during harvest season." "How many attacks?" 7 major ones over 4 years. Smaller raids in between." "And you participated in the defense?" "Everyone participated, even children. We didn't have a choice." Commander Vex made notes on his computer. Described the last attack. Amy was quiet for a moment, remembering. 15 raiders with military-grade weapons. They hit us at dawn when they thought we'd be sleeping. But my father had set up motion sensors around the farm. "Go on." "My brothers and father took positions in the main house and barn. They told me to hide in the root cellar." Amy looked directly at Commander Vex. "I didn't hide." "What did you do?" "The raiders had to cross our cornfield to reach the buildings. I knew that field better than anyone. I used the irrigation ditches for cover and flanked around behind them." Commander Vex leaned forward slightly. 15 armed raiders, and you flanked them alone?" They were focused on the house where they could see muzzle flashes. They weren't expecting anyone to come from behind. Amy remembered the feeling of crawling through the mud, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. "I took out their communications specialist first, then their leader." "With what weapons?" "Farming tools mostly. A shovel, a corn knife. I took their weapons after that." Commander Vex stared at her for a long moment. "You killed experienced raiders with farming tools." They weren't expecting a 14-year-old girl to attack them from behind. Sometimes surprise is better than superior weapons. "Indeed." Commander Vex turned back to the computer and made more notes. "Cadet Brooks, I am transferring you to advanced combat training, effective immediately." Amy felt her heart jump. "Sir, your performance today demonstrated that humans may have combat capabilities I had not considered. Your tactical thinking shows promise, and your practical experience is unusual for someone your age." "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." "Do not thank me yet." Commander Vex's yellow eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Advanced combat training is designed for species with natural physical advantages. The exercises are demanding, the sparring is intense, and the failure rate is high even among Korthak and Selvari cadets." "I understand, sir." "I doubt you do. What you accomplished today against Cadet Zrak was impressive, but he is a student like yourself. In advanced combat training, you will face opponents with years of real combat experience, veterans who have survived actual battles." Amy met his gaze steadily. "I'm ready for that challenge, sir." "We shall see." Commander Vex stood up, towering over her even across his desk. "Report for advanced combat training tomorrow at 0500 hours. Full gear, no exceptions." "Yes, sir." As Amy reached the door, Commander Vex called out again. Cadet Brooks. Yes, sir. Your victory today has created considerable discussion among the faculty. Some believe humans may have been underestimated. Others think it was simply luck, and that you will not survive real combat training. Which do you think, sir? Commander Vex was quiet for a moment. I think tomorrow will be very educational for all of us. Amy left the office and walked through the academy corridors with her head high. She had done it. She was going to be in advanced combat training with the best fighters from across the galaxy. But as she made her way back to her quarters, Amy couldn't shake the feeling that Commander Vex was planning something special for her first day. The way he had smiled when he mentioned facing experienced opponents made her nervous. She had wanted a chance to prove that humans could fight. Tomorrow, she was going to get that chance. In her quarters, Amy pulled out her personal communicator and recorded a message for her family back on Terra Colony 7. Hey, Dad, Jake, Mike, and Tony. I made it into advanced combat training. Remember when you guys said I was too small to help defend the farm? Well, today I beat a Korthak warrior in front of the entire academy. He's 8 feet tall and weighs about 400 pounds. I know you're proud of me, but don't worry too much. I learned from the best teachers. 3 annoying older brothers who never took it easy on me just because I was smaller. Amy smiled as she sent the message. By the time her family received it, she would already be deep into her first day of advanced training. She spent the evening preparing her gear and reviewing everything she had observed about alien fighting styles. Each species had strengths and weaknesses. The key was finding ways to turn their strengths against them while avoiding their natural advantages. Tomorrow would test everything she had learned growing up on a frontier farm, where being small meant being creative, being fast, and never, ever giving up. Amy fell asleep that night dreaming of cornfields and motion sensors, of raiders in the dawn light, and the satisfaction of proving everyone wrong. Amy arrived at the Advanced Combat Training Hall at 0455 hours, 5 minutes early as always. The other cadets were already there, stretching and preparing their equipment. She recognized some faces from the previous day's demonstration, but most were new to her. These were the elite cadets, the ones who had proven themselves capable of advanced training. The training hall itself was different from the basic combat area. The walls were covered with actual battle damage, scorch marks from energy weapons, gouges from bladed weapons, and impact craters from heavy projectiles. This was where real warriors trained. "Look what we have here," called out a voice behind her. Amy turned to see a group of senior cadets approaching. These weren't first-year students like herself and Drac. They wore the dark blue uniforms of advanced trainees and carried themselves with the confidence of experienced fighters. The leader was a Selvari named Kresh, tall and lean with the typical golden eyes of his species. Beside him stood 2 Korthak warriors who looked even more massive than Drac, and a 4th cadet Amy didn't recognize, some species with gray skin and 4 arms. "The little human who thinks she can fight," Kresh said, circling around Amy like a predator. "I heard about yesterday's lucky punch." "It wasn't luck," Amy replied calmly. "No? Then perhaps you would like to demonstrate your skills against someone with actual experience?" Kresh's golden eyes gleamed with amusement. "I have been in advanced combat training for 2 years. I have real battle experience from the Outer Rim conflicts. If you're offering a match, I accept." The other senior cadets laughed. One of the Korthak warriors shook his massive head. "She doesn't understand what she's agreeing to, Kresh. You could seriously hurt her. Then perhaps she will learn why humans belong in safe positions away from real fighting." Before the confrontation could escalate further, the massive doors of the training hall burst open. Commander Vex strode in, but he wasn't alone. Behind him came 3 other instructors Amy had never seen before. These weren't academy teachers. They wore the scarred armor of active military veterans. "Advanced Cadets, formation," Commander Vex commanded. The cadets immediately formed precise ranks. Amy found herself in the front row next to Kresh, who still looked amused by her presence. "Today begins intensive combat evaluation," Commander Vex announced. "You will be tested by actual combat veterans from active military units. This is not practice. This is not simulation. This is as close to real battle as we can provide in a training environment. One of the veteran instructors stepped forward. This was a Korthak warrior even larger than Commander Vex, with deep scars across his face and arms that looked like they came from energy weapons. "I am Sergeant Major Thane," he growled in a voice like grinding stone. "I have fought in 12 major battles and survived conflicts that killed half my unit. Today, you will demonstrate whether you deserve to continue advanced training or should return to basic instruction." Amy felt her stomach tighten. This was far beyond what she had expected. A second instructor stepped forward, a Selvari female with one arm missing below the elbow and burn scars covering half her face. "I am Captain Vera. I lost this arm and nearly my life fighting insurgents on Kepler Prime. Today, we will see if any of you have what it takes to survive real combat." The third instructor was a species Amy didn't recognize, humanoid but with thick, armored skin and glowing red eyes. "I am Colonel Thark. I have killed more enemies than most of you have ever seen. Today, we separate the warriors from pretenders." Commander Vex surveyed the assembled cadets. "You will face individual combat trials against our veteran instructors. No weapons, no protective gear, no rules except survival. Each of you will demonstrate your combat capabilities until you yield, cannot continue, or," he paused meaningfully, "are determined to be unsuitable for military service." Amy's heart was racing now. This wasn't training anymore. This was a trial by combat against battle-hardened veterans. "We will begin with our newest addition to advanced combat training," Commander Vex announced. Cadet Brooks stepped forward. Amy felt every eye in the hall focus on her as she moved the center of the training area. The other cadets formed a circle around her, just like yesterday, but the atmosphere was completely different. Yesterday had been a demonstration. Today felt like an execution. Commander Vex stepped into the circle across from her. "Today, Cadet Brooks, you will face a real opponent. No more students fresh from their home worlds. No more classroom exercises." Amy looked up at the massive reptilian instructor. Up close, his scars looked even more impressive. His yellow eyes held the cold intelligence of a predator who had survived countless battles. "Sir, are you saying you're going to be my opponent?" "I am saying that if humans truly belong in combat roles, you should be able to hold your own against an experienced instructor, even for a few minutes." The watching cadets were completely silent. Even Kresh looked nervous now. "Commander," called out Captain Vera, "perhaps we should start with something less intensive for the humans' first evaluation." "Captain, if Cadet Brooks is going to serve alongside galactic military forces, she needs to understand what real combat feels like. Today she learns whether humans can truly fight, or whether yesterday was simply an anomaly." Amy studied Commander Vex's stance, his positioning, the way he held his arms. This wasn't like fighting Zrak. This was a trained killer who had survived decades of real battles. "I'm ready, sir." "Are you?" "Let me tell you what I am. Cadet Brooks. I am a veteran of the siege of Proxima Station, where I held a corridor against 40 enemy soldiers for 6 hours. I survived the Battle of the Asteroid Fields, where 70% of my unit died in the first day. I have killed enemies with my bare hands, with improvised weapons, and with technologies your species has never seen." Amy met his gaze steadily. "Yes, sir, I understand." "Do you? Because what I am about to do to you will hurt. It will be frightening. And it will show everyone in this room exactly why humans have no place in real combat situations." Amy thought about her brothers, about the Raiders, about everyone who had ever told her she was too small to fight. She thought about Terra Colony 7 and the people who depended on defenders who refused to give up. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" Commander Vex tilted his massive head. "Granted. You're making the same mistake everyone makes with humans. You're assuming that physical advantages are the only thing that matters in combat. And what else matters, little human? The willingness to do whatever it takes to survive, the ability to adapt when your original plan fails, and the refusal to quit even when everyone tells you that you should." Commander Vex's mouth curved into what might have been a smile, but it looked more like a threat. "Pretty words. Let us see if you can back them up with action. One more thing, sir." "Yes." Amy looked around at all the watching cadets, then back at Commander Vex. "You said I need to understand what real combat feels like. But I think you need to understand what fighting a human feels like. The training hall went completely silent. Commander Vex straightened to his full 8-foot height. Begin! Amy didn't move immediately. She studied Commander Vex as he began to circle her, looking for patterns in his movement, weaknesses in his stance. He moved like a natural predator, balanced and controlled. Every step was deliberate, every motion calculated. But Amy had learned something important fighting her brothers and the raiders. The bigger and stronger your opponent was, the more confident they became. And confidence could become overconfidence very quickly. Commander Vex attacked without warning, moving faster than Amy had expected. His massive fist shot toward her head with enough force to end the fight immediately. Amy wasn't there when it arrived. She had dropped low and rolled to the side, staying close to the ground where his longer reach was less effective. As she rolled, she swept her leg toward his ankle. Commander Vex easily avoided the sweep and pivoted to follow her movement. His second attack came from above as Amy tried to regain her feet. This time, Amy couldn't dodge completely. Commander Vex's fist clipped her shoulder, spinning her around and sending her stumbling across the training floor. Pain shot down her arm, and she knew she would have serious bruises later. But she was still standing. First blood to the instructor called out one of the watching cadets. Amy ignored the pain and focused on Commander Vex's positioning. He was advancing steadily, forcing her back toward the wall, where she would have fewer options for movement. She let him drive her backward, but as they moved, Amy was studying his footwork, his timing, the rhythm of his attacks. Every fighter had patterns, even experienced ones. The key was surviving long enough to figure them out. Commander Vex pressed his attack, throwing precise combinations that forced Amy to dodge and weave constantly. His experience showed in every movement. He wasn't making the mistakes that Zrak had made. He kept his balance, controlled his distance, and didn't overcommit to any single attack. But Amy was learning too. Commander Vex favored his right side slightly. His left foot placement was just a fraction off standard. And when he threw combinations, he had a tendency to pause for just a split second between the second and third strikes. Amy waited for her moment, dodging and moving, taking minor hits when she had to but staying mobile. The watching cadets were getting excited now, shouting encouragement and advice in various languages. Then Commander Vex made his first real mistake. He threw a powerful right cross that Amy managed to slip, leaving him slightly off balance for just an instant. Amy stepped inside his guard and drove her elbow up toward his solar plexus, the same technique that had worked against Zrak. Commander Vex caught her arm easily and used the momentum to throw her across the training floor. Amy hit the ground hard and rolled, coming up near the wall, exactly where Commander Vex had been trying to drive her. Now she was trapped with limited room to maneuver. "Yield, Cadet Brooks," Commander Vex called out as he advanced. "You have shown courage, but this demonstration is over." Amy wiped blood from her split lip and shook her head. "No, sir. It's just getting started." Commander Vex paused in his advance, studying Amy with renewed interest. Blood ran from her split lip. Her left shoulder was clearly injured, and she was trapped against the wall with nowhere to run. Any reasonable fighter would yield at this point. But Amy wasn't any reasonable fighter. "You cannot win this, Cadet Brooks," Commander Vex said, his yellow eyes showing what might have been respect. "I have 30 years of combat experience. You have shown admirable spirit, but spirit alone cannot overcome that kind of advantage." "You're right, sir. Spirit alone can't win this fight." Amy wiped the blood from her mouth with the back of her hand. "But spirit plus everything else I've learned might." "Everything else?" Amy looked around the training hall, taking in the battle-damaged walls, the weapon racks, the positioning of the other cadets. "You told me I needed to understand what real combat feels like. But real combat isn't about fair fights in clean training halls." "Explain." "Real combat is messy. It's using whatever you have available. It's fighting dirty when you have to. It's refusing to quit even when you're outmatched." Amy shifted her weight, favoring her injured shoulder. "You taught me that by telling me about your battles." Commander Vex's mouth curved into what was definitely a smile this time. "You think you can use the environment against me? I think I can use everything against you, sir. That's what humans do when we're in trouble." Amy suddenly launched herself not at Commander Vex, but toward the nearest weapon rack. The massive reptilian instructor reacted instantly, moving to cut her off, but Amy had anticipated that. She grabbed a training staff from a rack and spun to face him, now armed and with more room to maneuver. Clever, Commander Vex admitted, but I am trained with weapons as well as without them. I'm counting on it, sir. Amy held the staff in a defensive position, but she wasn't planning to fight traditionally. Instead, she began moving in unpredictable patterns, using the staff to keep distance while studying Commander Vex's response to her new tactics. The instructor advanced carefully now, respecting the weapon but not intimidated by it. He had clearly faced armed opponents many times before. Amy feinted an attack toward his head, then suddenly reversed direction and swept the staff low toward his legs. Commander Vex jumped over the sweep easily and countered with a grab for the staff. But Amy wasn't trying to trip him. She was testing his reflexes and positioning. When he jumped, she saw exactly how he moved, how he recovered his balance, and most importantly, which direction he favored for his counterattacks. The staff fighting continued for several minutes, with Amy staying mobile and defensive while Commander Vex pressed forward with controlled aggression. To the watching cadets, it looked like the instructor was slowly gaining the advantage. Mai was actually learning everything she needed to know. When Commander Vex finally managed to disarm her, grabbing the staff and throwing it aside, Amy didn't look disappointed. She looked satisfied. Back to hand-to-hand combat, Commander Vex said, advancing on her again. No more weapons, no more tricks. No, sir, no more tricks, Amy agreed. But as Commander Vex moved in to finish the demonstration, Amy did something completely unexpected. Instead of backing away or trying to dodge, she charged straight at him. The massive instructor was caught off guard by the sudden aggression. He had been controlling the pace of the fight, and Amy's charge disrupted his timing. He threw a powerful punch intended to stop her advance, but Amy had anticipated that too. She ducked under his punch and wrapped her arms around his waist, driving forward with all her strength. It wasn't enough to knock him down, but it wasn't supposed to be. Amy was positioning him exactly where she wanted him. As Commander Vex tried to grab her and break the clinch, Amy suddenly released him and stepped back. The instructor stumbled slightly, and in that moment of unbalance, Amy struck. But she didn't attack Commander Vex directly. Instead, she grabbed the training staff he had thrown aside and swung it not at him, but at his feet. Commander Vex was an experienced fighter with excellent reflexes. He jumped over the staff sweep, just like before. But this time, Amy had planned for that reaction. As he jumped, Amy released the staff and launched herself upward, meeting him in midair. Her knee connected with his solar plexus just as his feet left the ground. When he had no way to avoid the impact or use his superior strength effectively, Commander Vex crashed to the training floor and didn't immediately get up. The hall went completely silent. Amy landed hard and rolled, coming up with the training staff in her hands again, ready to continue the fight. But Commander Vex was lying still, breathing heavily and staring at the ceiling. "Do you yield, sir?" Amy asked quietly. Commander Vex turned his head to look at her. His yellow eyes showed something Amy had never seen there before, genuine surprise. "How?" he asked simply. "You told me about your battles, sir. The siege of Proxima Station, the asteroid fields. You survived because you were stronger and tougher than your enemies. But I'm not trying to be stronger or tougher than you." Amy helped Commander Vex sit up. "I'm trying to be more unpredictable. You trained me yourself. You said I needed to understand real combat. Real combat means using psychology, using the environment, using your opponent's expectations against them." Commander Vex accepted her help getting to his feet. "You planned that entire sequence. From the moment you told me about your combat experience." "Yes, sir. I knew I couldn't outfight you, so I had to outthink you." Amy set the training staff aside. "You expected me to fight like a smaller, weaker version of the opponents you faced before. But humans don't fight like any other species." The watching cadets were starting to make noise again, talking excitedly in their various languages. Several were looking at Amy with expressions she had never seen before, not amusement or pity, but something approaching awe. Captain Vera stepped into the circle. "Commander Vex, are you injured?" My pride more than anything else, he replied, checking his ribs where Amy's knee had connected. Though I suspect I will be sore tomorrow. Colonel Thark moved closer, his red eyes studying Amy intently. Interesting tactics, human. You use psychological warfare, combined with environmental advantages, and misdirection. This is not how most species approach combat. No, sir, it's not. Most species have natural advantages they can rely on. Humans have to be creative. Sergeant Major Thane stepped forward, his massive frame towering over everyone. You defeated an experienced instructor through tactical thinking rather than physical superiority. This suggests that human combat doctrine may have applications we have not considered. Commander Vex nodded slowly. I underestimated you, Cadet Brooks, not just your abilities, but your approach to combat itself. You fought like a human, not like a smaller version of another species. Thank you, sir. However, Commander Vex continued, his voice becoming serious again, what you accomplished today was against a single opponent in a controlled environment. Real combat involves multiple enemies, unpredictable conditions, and life or death stakes. Amy met his gaze steadily. Sir, I grew up in real combat. Raiders attacking our farm weren't controlled training exercises. When 15 armed pirates come for your family in the middle of the night, you learn what life or death stakes feel like. Indeed. Commander Vex looked around at the assembled cadets. Advanced combat training will continue tomorrow, but today's demonstration has given me much to consider about human capabilities. As the cadets began to disperse, Kresh approached Amy. The senior Selvari cadet looked thoughtful rather than amused now. Human, he said quietly, I owe you an apology. I thought your victory yesterday was luck. Maybe it was partly luck, Amy replied honestly. No, what you did today was not luck. That was skill and planning and... He paused, searching for the right word. Cunning. You fought like a predator, not like prey. Thank you. Kresh extended his hand in the universal gesture of respect. I would be honored to train with you. Perhaps you could teach me some of these human fighting techniques. Amy shook his hand, surprised by the genuine respect in his golden eyes. I'd like that. As Amy gathered her gear and prepared to leave the training hall, she noticed Commander Vex talking quietly with the other veteran instructors. They kept glancing in her direction, and their expressions suggested they were having a very serious discussion. Captain Vera broke away from the group and approached Amy. Cadet Brooks, the instructors would like to meet with you tomorrow, before training. Am I in trouble, Captain? On the contrary, what you demonstrated today has raised questions about human combat potential that we need to explore further. Captain Vera smiled. The first time Amy had seen the Scar veteran show anything but stern professionalism. You may have just changed how the galaxy thinks about human warriors. Amy left the training hall with her head spinning. She had wanted a chance to prove that humans could fight, but now it seemed like she might have proven more than she intended. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and new opportunities to show what humans were truly capable of when they refused to give up. But tonight, she had earned something she had never expected to receive from alien warriors: respect. Amy arrived at the instructor meeting 30 minutes early, using the time to stretch and prepare mentally for whatever they had planned. Her shoulders still ached from yesterday's fight with Commander Vex, and she had purple bruises across her ribs, but nothing was seriously injured. The meeting room was smaller than she expected, with a round table surrounded by chairs designed for different alien physiologies. Commander Vex was already there, along with the 3 veteran instructors from yesterday and 2 others Amy didn't recognize. Cadet Brooks, please sit, Commander Vex said, gesturing to a human-sized chair that had been brought in specially for the meeting. Amy took her seat, feeling very small surrounded by the veteran warriors. Each of them bore the scars and bearing of experienced combat soldiers. This wasn't a casual training discussion. Before we begin, Commander Vex said, I want you to understand the purpose of this meeting. Your performance yesterday has raised questions about human combat capabilities that go beyond academy training. Captain Vera leaned forward. What you demonstrated was not just individual skill. Cadet Brooks, you showed tactical thinking that suggests humans approach warfare differently than other species. One of the new instructors, a species Amy didn't recognize with metallic skin and glowing blue eyes, spoke up. I am General Quarks. I have studied human military history since your species joined the galactic community. Most analyses concluded that humans were support specialists, good with technology and logistics, but not natural warriors. Your demonstration suggests those analyses may have been incomplete, added the other new instructor, a massive creature that looked like walking stone. I am Admiral Zek. I have commanded fleets in 3 major conflicts. What interests me is how you defeated Commander Vex using techniques that no other species would consider. Amy looked around the table at all the veteran officers studying her. Sir, I'm not sure what you want me to say. I just fought the way I was taught. That is exactly what we want to discuss. Commander Vex said. Who taught you to fight like that? My family, sir. My father and my 3 older brothers. And the circumstances on Terra Colony 7. General Quarks made notes on a datapad. Describe your training. Amy thought about how to explain growing up on a frontier farm. It wasn't formal training, sir. My brothers used to wrestle with me and each other. My father taught us basic self-defense. But mostly we learned by necessity. The raider attacks, Admiral Zek rumbled. Yes, sir. When someone's trying to kill you and your family, you learn fast. You use whatever works. Tell us about the specific techniques you used yesterday, Captain Vera requested. The psychological manipulation, the environmental awareness, the tactical planning. I don't know if I can explain it clearly, Amy said honestly. When I'm fighting someone bigger and stronger, I have to think differently. I can't match their advantages, so I have to create my own. Give us an example, Commander Vex said. Amy thought for a moment. In my fight with you yesterday, sir, I knew from the beginning that I couldn't win in a straight combat exchange. So I studied how you moved, how you reacted, what you expected me to do. And then I did things you weren't expecting. I used the weapon rack to change the dynamic. I charged when you expected me to retreat. I attacked your positioning instead of attacking you directly. General Quarks looked up from his notes. This suggests that human combat doctrine emphasizes adaptability and unpredictability over raw physical capability. I guess so, sir. We call it thinking outside the box. Explain that phrase, Admiral Zek requested. It means not limiting yourself to obvious solutions, looking for alternatives that other people might not consider. Amy paused. When you're always the smallest person in the fight, you get good at thinking outside the box. Commander Vex leaned back in his chair. Cadet Brooks, we are going to test this theory. Today's training will be different from anything you have experienced. How different, sir? You will face multiple opponents simultaneously. You will fight in environments designed to disadvantage you. You will be tested under conditions that simulate real battlefield stress. Captain Vera's scarred face was serious. We need to understand whether what you demonstrated yesterday was an anomaly or representative of human potential. Amy felt her heart rate increase. How many opponents, sir? As many as it takes to find your breaking point, General Quark said bluntly. Every fighter has limits. We need to understand yours. What if I can't handle the tests? Then you will fail, and we will have learned something important about human limitations, Admiral Zek replied. But if you succeed, we may need to reconsider how humans fit into galactic military structure. Commander Vex stood up. Today's testing will be observed by military officials from across the galaxy. Word of yesterday's demonstration has spread quickly. There are some who believe humans may have been underestimated as combat personnel, and others who think it was a fluke, Captain Vera added. Today we'll settle the question. As the meeting ended and Amy made her way to the advanced training hall, she felt the weight of expectations settling on her shoulders. This wasn't just about her anymore. She was representing her entire species. The training hall had been completely reconfigured overnight. Instead of the open space she was used to, it now contained obstacles, barriers, and environmental hazards. The lighting was dimmed and colored filters created shadows and blind spots throughout the area. More importantly, the observation deck was packed with military officers from different species. Amy could see uniforms she didn't recognize and aliens she had never encountered before. Whatever happened today was going to be watched by some very important people. Today's scenario is simple. Commander Vex announced to the assembled cadets and observers. Cadet Brooks will face increasing numbers of opponents in a simulated battlefield environment. She may use any techniques, any environmental advantages, and any tactical approaches she chooses. What are the victory conditions? Amy asked, survive and neutralize all opponents. The test continues until you either succeed completely or are unable to continue. Amy looked around the modified training hall. How many opponents will I be facing? We start with 2, Commander Vex replied. If you succeed, we add more until we reach your breaking point. The first 2 opponents stepped forward. Amy recognized them. Kresh, the senior Selvari cadet, and another student she had seen in advanced training, a Korthak warrior named Drak, who was even larger than Drak. Nothing personal human, Kresh said as they took their positions. But I am curious to see how you handle multiple opponents. Same here, Amy replied, studying the modified environment and planning her approach. The test began immediately. Kresh and Drak coordinated their attack, with the Selvari using his speed to flank while the Korthak pressed forward with overwhelming force. It was a classic pincer movement designed to eliminate Amy's mobility advantage. Amy had expected this. She retreated deeper into the obstacle course, using barriers and elevation changes to break up their coordinated assault. When you're outnumbered, the key is to avoid fighting multiple opponents at the same time. She led them through a maze of obstacles, staying mobile and forcing them to follow her in single file where possible. When Kresh tried to use his speed advantage to get ahead of her, Amy used a swinging barrier to knock him off balance, then focused on Drak while his partner recovered. The fight lasted 15 minutes before both opponents yielded. Amy had used the environment expertly, turning their advantages against them and picking her moments to strike. But she was breathing hard and had taken several hits. Well done, Commander Vex called out. Round 2, for opponents. Amy's heart sank as 4 new cadets entered the training area. This included 2 species she had never fought before, with abilities she didn't know. The second round was much harder. With 4 opponents, Amy couldn't control positioning as effectively. She was forced to take more risks, use more desperate tactics, and push her endurance to its limits. But she survived. Barely. Round 3. 6 opponents. By the time 6 opponents entered the training area, Amy was exhausted and injured. Her left arm wasn't working properly from a hit she had taken in round 2, and she was bleeding from several cuts. But she wasn't quitting. The third round pushed Amy beyond anything she had ever experienced. She was forced to use every trick she knew and several she invented on the spot. She turned opponents against each other, used environmental hazards as weapons, and employed psychological tactics that left her opponents confused and off balance. When the last opponent finally yielded, Amy collapsed to her knees, completely drained. Round 4, Commander Vex announced. 8 opponents. Amy looked up at him in disbelief. Sir, I can barely stand. Real combat doesn't stop because you're tired, Cadet Brooks. 8 opponents. As 8 fresh cadets entered the training area, Amy forced herself to her feet. Her body was screaming in protest. Her vision was blurry from exhaustion, and she could taste blood in her mouth. But somewhere deep inside, she found something she hadn't known was there. A place beyond pain, beyond exhaustion, beyond rational thought. A place where giving up simply was an option. Amy wiped the blood from her mouth and smiled. Bring them on. Amy stood in the center of the modified training area, surrounded by 8 opponents arranged in a perfect circle. Her left arm hung useless at her side. Blood dripped from a cut above her right eye, and her entire body shook with exhaustion. Any rational fighter would have yielded long ago, but Amy had stopped thinking rationally 3 opponents ago. Begin, Commander Vex called out. The 8 cadets moved in coordinated formation, closing the circle slowly and methodically. They had watched her fight 6 opponents and learned from her tactics. This time, they weren't going to let her control the engagement or use the environment to separate them. Amy's vision swam as she tried to track all 8 opponents simultaneously. The lighting in the modified training hall seemed to pulse with her heartbeat, and she could hear her own breathing echoing strangely in her ears. She was entering what her family had always called the zone, the place her father had told her about when desperation became clarity, when pain became irrelevant, and when the impossible became merely difficult. The first attacker came from her weak left side, a Selvari cadet trying to exploit her injured arm. Amy let him approach, then suddenly spun right, using her good arm to deflect a strike, while simultaneously kicking backward at a Korthak warrior who was advancing from behind. The coordination surprised both opponents and disrupted their careful formation. Amy flowed between them like water, no longer thinking about her movements, but simply reacting with an instinct that went deeper than training. She grabbed a loose piece of debris from the training obstacles and hurled it at the lighting controls. The hall plunged into irregular lighting that strode between bright and dark, creating confusing shadows and blind spots that favored someone who could adapt quickly. Clever, someone in the observation deck murmured, but Amy didn't hear them. She was too deep in the zone now, operating on pure survival instinct. The next few minutes were a blur of movement and violence. Amy used every trick she had ever learned and several she invented on the spot. She turned opponents against each other by misdirecting their attacks. She used a modified lighting to create illusions about her position. She exploited the psychological advantage of fighting someone who clearly should have been defeated already. One by one, the opponents fell, not through overpowering them, but through outlasting them, outthinking them, and simply refusing to give up when anyone else would have quit. When the seventh opponent yielded, Amy and the last cadet, a massive Korthak warrior named Thok, were alone in the strobing, chaotic training area. Thok was fresh and uninjured. Amy could barely stand. But she had something he didn't understand, the absolute refusal to accept defeat that came from growing up on a frontier world where surrender meant death. "You cannot win," Thok said, advancing slowly. "You are injured and exhausted. Yield with honor, human." Amy wiped blood from her eyes and smiled through split lips. "You know what my father taught me about yielding?" "What?" "Never do it while you're still breathing." Amy attacked with the last of her strength, not trying to overpower the massive warrior, but to confuse and misdirect him. She moved erratically, unpredictably, like someone who had nothing left to lose. Thok defended expertly at first, but Amy's desperate aggression was unlike anything in his training. She fought like someone who had accepted that she might lose, but refused to make it easy. The psychological effect was devastating. Thok began to doubt himself, to hesitate, to wonder what this small human knew that he didn't. That hesitation was all Amy needed. She feinted high, then dove low, sweeping Thok's legs while he was still trying to process her previous movement. The massive warrior went down hard, and Amy somehow found the strength to pin him despite the size difference. "Yield," she gasped. I yield," Thok said, sounding more confused and defeated. Amy rolled off him and lay on the training floor, staring up at the strobing lights. Her body felt like it was shutting down, but she had done it. She had defeated 8 opponents while injured and exhausted. The training hall was completely silent. Then Commander Vex stepped into the training area, and Amy could see something in his yellow eyes that hadn't been there before. Genuine concern. "Cadet Brooks, report your status." Amy tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through her entire body, and her vision went dark around the edges. I'm fine, sir," she managed to say, though her voice sounded distant even to herself. "You are not fine," Commander Vex replied, kneeling beside her. "Medical team to the training hall immediately." "Sir, I can continue if there are more opponents." Commander Vex stared at her for a moment. "Cadet Brooks, you just defeated 8 trained fighters while injured and exhausted. There are no more opponents." "Did I pass the test?" "You did more than pass. Cadet Brooks, you did something that no instructor in this academy has ever seen before." The medical team arrived and began scanning Amy with their equipment. She could hear them talking in concerned voices about exhaustion, multiple injuries, and something about stress indicators that were off their charts. "Transport to medical bay immediately," the lead medic ordered. "This human has pushed far beyond safe physiological limits." As they loaded Amy onto a transport stretcher, she could see the observation deck still packed with military officials from across the galaxy. They were all talking at once, their voices creating a buzz of excitement and disbelief. Wait, Amy called out weakly as they moved her toward the medical bay. Commander Vex, did I prove what I needed to prove? Commander Vex walked alongside the stretcher. Cadet Brooks, you proved something that I am not sure we were prepared to learn. What's that, sir? That humans don't fight like any other species in the galaxy. You don't fight to win. You fight to survive. And apparently, there is a significant difference between those two concepts. In the medical bay, Amy drifted in and out of consciousness as the alien doctors worked on her injuries. She heard fragments of conversation between the medical staff and visiting military officials. Physiological stress levels that should have caused unconsciousness. Continued tactical thinking despite exhaustion that would incapacitate most species. Psychological profile, unlike anything in our databases. When she finally woke up fully, Captain Lisa Stone was sitting beside her bed. Amy had never seen the human liaison officer before, but she recognized the uniform. Hello, Amy. I'm Captain Stone. How are you feeling? Like I got run over by a cargo transport. Amy replied honestly, but alive. That's what has everyone so interested. According to the medical scans, you should have collapsed during the 4th round of testing. Your body was operating in conditions that most species would find impossible. Is that good or bad? Captain Stone smiled. That depends on your perspective. From a medical standpoint, it's concerning. From a military standpoint, it's revolutionary. What do you mean? Amy, what you demonstrated today has caused a fundamental reassessment of human combat capabilities. Military leaders from across the galaxy are requesting meetings to discuss human integration into frontline combat units. Amy tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. Really? You didn't just prove that humans can fight, Amy. You proved that humans fight differently than anyone expected. And that difference might be exactly what galactic military forces need. Through the medical bay window, Amy could see the Academy grounds bustling with activity. Transport ships were landing and taking off constantly, carrying military officials who had come to witness something unprecedented. Captain Stone, what happens now? Now you recover. Then you continue your training. But, Amy, I want you to understand something important. What's that? You're not just a cadet anymore. You're proof of concept for an entirely new approach to galactic warfare. That's a big responsibility. Amy looked out the window at the busy Academy grounds. I just wanted to prove that humans could fight. You did that and more. You proved that humans fight to survive, not just to win. And in a galaxy full of conflicts, that might be the most valuable skill of all. As Captain Stone left the medical bay, Amy closed her eyes and thought about Terra Colony 7, about her family, about everyone who had ever said she was too small to fight. Tomorrow she would be back in training. But everything had changed. She wasn't fighting just for herself anymore. She was fighting for every human who had ever been told they weren't strong enough, fast enough, or tough enough to be warriors. And if today had proven anything, it was that humans had their own definition of what it meant to be strong. Amy woke up in the medical bay 3 days later feeling better than she had expected. The alien medical technology had accelerated her healing significantly, though she still had impressive bruises covering most of her body. More importantly, the constant ache of exhaustion that had become normal over the past week was finally gone. Captain Stone was waiting for her with a fresh uniform and a data pad full of messages. Good morning, Amy. Ready to see what kind of storm you created? Amy sat up carefully, testing her range of motion. Storm. Your performance has been analyzed by military strategists from 12 different species. The recordings of your fights have been studied by combat experts across the galaxy. Captain Stone handed her the data pad. You have 47 interview requests from military academies, 23 research proposals from xenopsychology departments, and 15 formal requests for human combat specialists from active military units. Amy scrolled through the messages, trying to process what she was seeing. All of this because I beat some opponents in training? Amy, you didn't just beat opponents. You demonstrated a completely new approach to combat that challenges everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Captain Stone sat down beside her bed. Let me explain what the analysts found. Okay, Most species approach combat as a test of their natural advantages. Korthak use strength, Selvari use speed, reptilians use experience and tactical knowledge. Each species has developed fighting styles that maximize their biological gifts. That makes sense. But humans don't have overwhelming natural advantages in combat. So instead, you develop something else entirely. Captain Stone pulled up a holographic display showing Amy's fights. You fight with adaptability, unpredictability, and psychological warfare. Most importantly, you fight with what they're calling tactical persistence, the ability to continue effective combat operations despite conditions that would cause other species to yield. Amy watched recordings of herself fighting while injured and exhausted. I just didn't want to quit. That's exactly the point. Most species have biological or psychological triggers that cause them to yield when continuing would be dangerous. It's a survival mechanism that prevents them from fighting to death over non-essential conflicts. But humans don't have that trigger? Apparently not to the same degree. Your species seems capable of overriding survival instincts when you believe the stakes are high enough. Captain Stone paused the recording at the moment Amy collapsed after defeating 8 opponents. The question is whether this makes humans valuable as combat specialists or too dangerous to integrate into standard military units. Before Amy could respond, Commander Vex entered the medical bay. He looked different somehow, less intimidating and more thoughtful than she had ever seen him. Cadet Brooks, how are you feeling? Much better, sir. Ready to return to training. About that. Commander Vex pulled up a chair and sat down. Your training status has been changed. Amy felt her heart sink. Have I been removed from advanced combat training? On the contrary, you have been selected for a new program that didn't exist until 3 days ago. Commander Vex smiled slightly. The Galactic Military Council has approved the creation of the Human Combat Integration Project. You will be the first participant. What does that mean? It means you will be training with military units from across the galaxy, teaching them human combat techniques while learning their approaches to warfare. The goal is to develop integrated tactics that combine human adaptability with alien advantages. Captain Stone leaned forward. Amy, they want you to help create an entirely new military doctrine. Amy looked back and forth between them. But I'm just a first-year cadet. I don't know anything about military doctrine. You know something that no one else in the galaxy knows, Commander Vex replied. You know how humans fight. And after watching your performance,